We have a talk with Acharya Prashant. A prodigy since his childhood, Acharya Prashant completed his B.Tech from IIT Delhi. Most of us here have a strong connection with him because he hails from the same campus as us. He completed his PGDM from IIM-Ahmedabad, post which he also served as a civil servant and was offered an IS equivalent position in RAW, that is the Research and Analysis Wing. Having worked at various corporations like Bennett Coleman and ECS for a few years, as they say, time brought him to the service of the timeless.
Acharya Prashant has taken an unconventional path in his life. Currently, he leads the Prashant Advait Foundation, where he engages in self-awareness camps, free-flow discussions about spirituality, way of living, etc. His talks and discussions spanning over a decade now have resulted in over 8,500 videos. He is also the author of more than 20 books. The dynamism of his personality is such that one could call him a spiritual leader rooted in Advait Vedanta, or one could call him a most contemporary representative of all spiritual traditions of the world, alongside being a veganism promoter, an environmental activist, a science activist, a campaigner against superstition, and a champion of essential human freedom. It gives us immense pleasure, sir, to have you with us. Let us please welcome Acharya with a hearty round.
So, sir, I will have my first go.
Sure.
So, back to campus after 17 years. Not too soon, definitely. How does it feel?
A lot of things started here in this campus itself, right? So that's the reason I decided to come a few hours prior to the talk. Until 4 p.m., I was going around the campus, looking back at many of the things. And as our talk proceeds, I'll take you back to the points that connect this moment, right, to my stay at IIM-A. But surely it is a very important and significant moment for me, where I and the mission stand today has a lot to do with my stay, my academics, my experience at this campus. We'll talk about that.
Talking about the theme that we have today of profit beyond profits. Now in management, we learn about how to maximize profits. But we talk about going beyond profits. So what does going beyond profits mean?
See, when we talk of material profits in the commercial financial sense, they are all for the sake of the one who will benefit from those profits, who will enjoy those profits, right? So profits obviously are not an end in themselves. A lot of times, yes, material profits do bring about an enhancement in the quality of life of the profiteer, of the one who is making the profit. But equally, I would rather say more often than not, profits fail to bring about the inner change that was required of them. One doesn't just go about trying for profits, harvesting profits for nothing. One wants something through those profits. It is important to keep checking whether that which we want from profits is indeed being delivered by the profits. So that's the primary profit, the profit beyond profits. It needs to be kept in mind. What is happening to me in whatsoever persuasion I am, be it industry, be it my personal universe, whatsoever I am doing, what is it that the stuff is really bringing to me? It sounds obvious, but it is very easy to lose sight of this, right? So that's what is meant by profit beyond profits.
Now, what relevance does reading wisdom literature play a role in especially a medical student's life, given how rigorous it is and considering that they actually have trouble fitting sleep into our schedules?
Yeah. You see, all the miscellaneous literature that we read is knowledge about stuff, is knowledge about things that occur to us, stuff that we can hold, feel, name, process, right? Objects, those stuff units are duly called. Objects which occur to us who are the subjects, right? So, there is knowledge that comes to you, and then there is the knowledge about the one to whom the knowledge comes. It is extremely important to know the one who is accumulating the knowledge. Why do we need knowledge at all? Who is the one who is gathering knowledge? Who is the one who is reading literature? To what end? For what purpose? If we do not ask this question, then our pursuits are quite mechanical. We do not know what we are doing things for, right? In fact, what is quite possible is that you may have knowledge, and that knowledge might be used by a center within you, by a part of yours, which is not quite in congruence with your welfare. Are you getting it? It's a simple question to ask. I am going to have knowledge. Who is desirous of that knowledge? What am I going to use that knowledge for? It's not a comfortable question to ask. It's a straightforward question, but not an easy one. You can immediately ask it, but it may disrupt your inner comfort. It may put you at unease. Therefore, we find it easier to just keep involving ourselves with stuff around ourselves, rather than ask, what is my relationship with that stuff? And when I'm talking of stuff, that stuff includes all the literature that we read, books, journals, institutionalized knowledge like the knowledge that we gather from this campus. Wisdom literature, on the other hand, is knowledge about who you are. What is the center within that is desirous of knowledge? What is the center within that is doing this, doing that, trying for this, competing with that, accumulating this, dropping that? Who is doing all this? What does he or she hope to get from what he is doing? Are the hopes really materializing? And if not, then why keep investing in an entity that is perpetually failing to deliver? That's why wisdom literature is as important as, rather far more important than all other stuff that we read. Translated into other words, self-knowledge, which is not something mystical, which is not something esoteric, which is something as simple as questioning your intentions. Questioning your intentions. That self-knowledge, self-inquiry is more important than having know-how of the world systems, of technology, of politics, of society, of all the things that are available to us in the libraries.
Recently, you also gave a talk at IIT Delhi, and now you are here. Both of these universities are your alma-mater. So your batchmates today would be at multiple corporate senior positions, and you are a spiritual leader. So how do you look at them? And if I may even question, whom would you say is more successful? But more importantly, how do you even define success? And how do you evaluate success?
You see, success obviously is subjective. It depends on who you are, right? Do we see that? When you say that one has to succeed, the underlying assumption is that one is currently not successful. When you say that you want to succeed, what you are saying is you want to reach somewhere, and the point where you want to reach is not the point you are currently at. Correct? And that's a fair assumption, because all of us are indeed restless. We are restless, and that proves that we are not where we must be. We are all desirous. We all want to become something else or the other. This desire to become is in itself a strong indicator that our current state, our current configuration is not ideal, not final. Something needs to change. Something needs to improve within, right? So we are all restless, but we are all restless in our personal and unique ways. At a general level, we could sum up the situation of every sentient being in one word. Consciousness is restlessness. If you are conscious, you are restless. And if you are not restless, then you don't need to succeed. You are already successful, right? So your restlessness is your demand for success. But our restlessness comes to us in very, very personal and very unique ways. Therefore, success has to be different for each one of us. Correct? It's like saying that each one of us is in bondage. But you might be held by the right arm and he might be held by the left arm. He might be pinned to a wall, right? And he might be held to the floor in some other way. So we all are enslaved. But freedom will come to us in very different ways. Success is the name of that freedom. And therefore, the efforts and endeavors of each one of us have to be particular to that entity. You have to define your own success. Your success cannot be a general thing. Your success cannot be a social norm. What might constitute genuine success for one individual may actually have no bearing on the welfare of somebody else. Superficially, if you look at both of them, you will find that both of them have had the same accomplishment. Both of them have cleared the same hurdle. But it would be fallacious to say that both have succeeded equally. The same event might be an indicator of deep success for one, but may not really be that significant to the other. But if the other one, the second person, goes by the prevailing norms, he or she will try to console himself, herself, that he is equally successful when he is not. Therefore, to know whether or not you are successful or whether you or not you are moving in the direction of your success, you have to first know where you are standing. Correct? Let's call success, we just said success is freedom. So let's call success as one common point of liberation from your bondages. That destination might be common to all, but the route taken and the exact milestones covered have to be different for each person. Therefore, we cannot compare our success with the next person. If we want to know whether we are successful or not, then we have to ask ourselves, am I really getting better off compared to my previous stage, not compared to somebody else? Am I now better off compared to what I used to be? After all, my restlessness is the reason I strive so much. Am I less restless now, or is it so that The events that I quote as my accomplishments have actually made me more restless, more frenzied, more feverish, more insecure. If you find that your achievements are in fact making you more insecure, then they are not an indicator of your success. You are not quite mapping your route rightly, and that has to be very clearly known. It would be quite ironical the day people come and congratulate you for a certain accomplishment and you feel no joy within. It is such an absurd situation then, right? The world kind of wants you to feel good about yourself, but deep within you know that years of effort has not made any positive change to your internal condition. And mind you, it is not people that we live with. We live with our insides. Even when we are surrounded by a lot of people, we actually have to live with ourselves. And if you're not feeling good with yourself, it's no fun living.
So you yourself are an entrepreneur. So how would you define entrepreneurship, and what would you define as value creation by an entrepreneur? And subsequently, what advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs out here?
See, there is an entrepreneurship that is just an extension of what you have been all your life, right? Most people present in this room at this time would have been quite competitive all their life. I too have been that way. And I know the campus. I have lived here for a duration longer than you have been here. So we have chased numbers. We have tried to edge ahead of the next person. Success for us has been something quantitative. The number has to be good enough. The number has to be better than the average. If possible, higher than everybody else, right? So there are percentages that we chase. Then there is CGPA. Before that, percentile. Then CTC. Now there is a kind of entrepreneurship that says, start the company, see which sectors are hot and booming, and when you reach a certain stage after N rounds of funding, sell it off, right? And add a few more zeros to your personal bank balance. That's one kind of entrepreneurship. It makes no real change to who you are. In your own style, in your own primitive way, you have just sung another song, run of the mill. Nothing fresh about it. Nothing even melodious about it, right? And then there is another entrepreneurship that is an expression of the best within you. That is an expression of your seeking, of your longing for the best. Such an entrepreneurship is not an act in ambition. It is rather a love affair. Now you will not quit your concern if it fails to turn profitable within a few months or a few years, right? Now you will not quickly want to leverage equity so that you can have rapid growth. And obviously, if the cause is worthwhile, if your company or your organization, your venture is such that you want to really live with it, then you will not want to sell it off. The growth of your venture will mirror your inner growth. The choice is yours. What kind of entrepreneurship do you want to have? In my case, the choice is obvious. Though in the second kind of entrepreneurship, you'll probably not have as much of material and financial benefit as you could have otherwise had. But then, as the topic of today's talk says, there is a profit beyond profits. Ultimately, we are living beings. Ultimately, it is not about cash in hand. We have a life to live, right? And it is the quality of life that matters, and it is the quality of life for the sake of which we do everything, including being present at this institution. You said, how do I feel when I look at my batchmates? So they are all very bright people, and they surely are doing well in their respective persuasions. And what I am doing is something that needed to be done, that ought to be done. In this, I have no choice. When you see something as compelling and as urgent as the situation the world is in today, and when you see the beauty that lies in ridding yourself and somebody else of our self-imposed bondages, then the compulsion and the beauty get together to make you choiceless. There was no way I would not have done what I have done. So, to each his own.
Slightly different topic now. So, from the videos that I have watched, I understand you are a strong veganism promoter. Now, as institutes like IITs and IIMs and institutes which people look up to and get influenced and follow, what do you believe institutes like these should follow and promote? Do you also believe that institutes should promote veganism, in your opinion?
No, I mean, a technical institution, an institution that deals with science and technology, or an institution that is devoted to studies in management, obviously cannot have veganism on its agenda. At the same time, we are technocrats and managers later. First of all, we are living persons. We understand a few things, right? And from that understanding must come our code of ethics. We need not borrow it from somewhere, and the code of ethics need not be institutionally enforced. But don't we understand? Don't we look around? We know what is happening. We are all pretty literate and sophisticated people. We are conscious of data. And if we look at the data, it is compelling enough. And from there will come the incentive or the persuasiveness to go vegan and to promote veganism. It is not a cult, it is not a fad. It is a demand of the times we live in, right? And sooner than later, each one of us will have to ask ourselves, what business do we have exploiting animals? There was a time when it was all right for a human being to exploit a human being. Was there not a time just a couple of centuries back? And it was the norm and nobody questioned it. It was all right. The white man could exploit the black man with impunity, right? And there was a time when it was all right for men to dominate and exploit women, right? Till recently, there were a few countries in which women did not have voting rights or equal protection of the law, could not even get driving license, and it was considered acceptable. It was normal. So just because a few things are normal doesn't mean that they are all right. They will change, correct? The rights that gays and transgenders enjoy today were unthinkable just half a century back. So we have had human rights, we have had equal rights to women, we have had equal rights to bisexuals, transgenders. Next, you will see, we will have a situation where animals too will be accorded the right to life. That is going to be a historical imperative. Now we have to decide whether we want to be on the right side of history or not. Otherwise, it's all right. I mean, if we don't agree to something willingly, the tide of time will sweep us away. Even today, there are people, for example, who would not quite agree to women being equal to men. But then you could call them, dinosaurs as far as the progress of consciousness is concerned. You would say, oh, they are very primitive people, correct? Similarly, 50 years from now, if you are someone who will deny animals their basic right to life, you'll find yourself being termed primitive by history, right? As young people, I suppose, we should know what the demand of time is. In the language of spirituality, that is called Kala Dharma. We better apply ourselves to that. And then these things will be very apparent. The two things that you mentioned, environmental activism and veganism, they are very closely related. If we are someone who cares for the environment, we cannot miss the fact that a huge bulk of carbon emission comes from animal agriculture, right? Because we cannot quit the flesh on our plate and because we cannot quit our dairy, that is leading to immense environmental and ecological damage. So being scientifically minded, being in possession of the facts, these things should matter to us, right? Irrespective of the institution we come from. It is not the job of the institutions to enforce such things. Institutions should actually be, in a liberal sense, enforcing nothing. We as individuals should be looking at these matters. We as young people should be looking at these matters and deciding on our own.
I look at your career, or be it any normal Indian who look at this career, they'll see a person who has been very aspirational, very hardworking, the one who wanted to prove himself to the society, to the family. Then was there a particular instant when you realized that, okay, now I am living, now I am giving up the entire hard work of 25 years which you would have definitely put in this? And then was there a particular instant, or you thought, or you were on the thought line that first I'll just settle myself as in a name, and then choose another path?
See, first of all, I was lucky to have been exposed to various kinds of books, just random literature since a very young age. I had my father's library at home, and somehow I loved to read, and it was almost like an unattended bush growing up in very random ways, branching out in all haphazard directions. But the branching out was real. So there was a lot that was going on in the consciousness. It was not obviously a one point or one day or a one moment kind of a thing or decision. I'll give you an example from the campus itself. I entered in 2001. I belonged to the class of 2003. 2001 was the Bhuj earthquake. So when I came to the campus, the earthquake was on 26th of January. When I came to the campus, so many buildings were still crumbling. You could see the debris, the ruins, the tatters as you move from this place to the railway station. And 50 or 100 people had died in Ahmedabad itself, and we all know of the body count in Bhuj. So that was 2001. And that makes you think. Then 9/11, that was 2001. Now I am in the campus, right? I am in the dorm. And there are these two planes flying into the Twin Towers. And you are forced to think, if money is everything, if material is everything, if prosperity is everything, if the so-called happiness is everything, why is this happening? And you are a living being. And your sense of inquiry, your inquisitiveness, your analytical skills, your logical skills are not there just to apply on a particular balance sheet or a strategy problem, right? You look at the world in general and you apply your analytical skills. So I'm looking at those images on my screen and I'm asking, why is this happening to America, right? 2002, end of February, and you have the Gujrat riots, and I'm in the campus, right? And on the day of the campus, 28th of Feb 2002, I'm going from the campus to the railway station, and I'm witnessing the globally infamous Gujrat riots firsthand. I'm seeing what is going on. And again, these are things that make you really think, unless you are totally preoccupied with, your personal stuff like career or relationships or girlfriend or something. My own car was smashed. Not that I had to suffer some personal physical damage or something, but it sets you in motion. You want to ask what is going on. And then there was a course by Professor Manikutty, LVMR. I do not know whether it is still floated. Leadership, Vision, Meaning and Reality. And I always had this inclination towards literature. I took that course. And there was Iravati Karve, Yuganta, there was Don Quixote, Ibsen was there, Doll's House, Wild Duck, and Hermann Hesse, Siddharth. And I was seeing very clearly that this side of life, which you call as the emotional side, the subjective side, the soft side, is indeed very important even in hardcore managerial decision making. And then that gave me a clue. When I graduated from the campus, I designed a little more hardcore course of my own. And it consisted of more spiritual kind of literature. And I floated that course at IIMT Ghaziabad. There it ran for 5 years. Conducted a few sessions at TIS, Mumbai, and MDI, and a few other places, Symbiosis. And I was getting the feel of it. And I was getting more deeply into it. So it was an entire process, not a particular moment of departure. I was seeing that it is not merely managers who require these inputs, but the population in general is deeply in need of wisdom inputs. So stuff kept happening, and my own reading intensified, got more purposeful, more directed, and and then the process is still continuing. It's not as if we have reached some kind of an end product. It's still happening. Yeah.
So I want to ask comparatively, like Carl Cohen's Western philosophers' argument that animals don't have lives. So what he says is that right is a claim that one party may exercise against other, and it can only exist when you can basically make a moral claim against something else. So where does the right to life of animals?
I missed that word.
Yeah. So
Animals don't have?
So rights exist only among beings who can basically make a moral claim against one another. So maybe if we go with an example, right now we have, so there is coronavirus, it originated from the bats initially. So if you are going to a scenario where you have to protect the life of animals, and you indeed need to kill a bat and create a vaccine. So where will the extent of right to life go in the protection of humans also? So that
See,
is
if a human being threatens your life, in that case you have the right to kill even a human being, no? So why conjure a hypothetical situation where you say that if the coronavirus, the COVID, is threatening the life of a human being, should we kill the virus or not? Or if a bat is the carrier of the virus, should we kill the bat or not? In extreme situations, you can kill even human beings. But we are not talking of extreme situations here. We are talking of general day-to-day life. Would you go after the virus if it is not threatening you? Please. Would you go after the virus if it is not threatening you? If it threatens you, by all means go after it. In that case, if even a human being threatens you, you have all the rights to even kill that human being in self-protection. But why kill an animal? Is the animal really threatening you?
So that wasn't exactly the question. Imagine if there is an animal which is basically causing the virus here, maybe in India or somewhere. Okay. So we found that a similar kind of animal exists maybe somewhere which is not threatening us, but which may have the potential if we research it, potential cause for the cure. So will we go to that animal and actually protect our own species now, which is not threatening to us?
That obviously has to be the last resort. You see, again, you are talking of an extreme situation. But before you do that, you must be honestly convinced that you have exhausted all other options. Have you? We have intellect and we exercise our intellect so aggressively for so many purposes. Even in this regard, let's first exercise our intellect equally aggressively. So let's first of all exhaust all other options, and then if it turns out that if you don't kill that particular animal, the entire human race can be jeopardized, then you go ahead and kill the animal, fine. But then that is a 0.00001% chance. That is an utter extreme. When we are talking of not exploiting animals, when we are talking of vegetarianism or veganism, then we are not talking of extreme situations. An extreme situation invokes apad dharma. Right? We are talking of our day-to-day life. In your day-to-day life, do you really require to have that egg on your plate as for your breakfast? That's what we are discussing here. Not an extreme situation. In an extreme situation, seriously, if I am the carrier of the virus, by all means execute me. Why should one man's life be so important that the entire human race and knowledge and civilization is threatened because of it? I mean, execute me, fine, I'll be okay with it.
I wanted to know about how do you find direction in your life? How do you find the mission that you want to pursue? And how do you find excellence in every second? That's my question.
You have to know what you are doing. You have to know what you are doing. Once you know what you are doing, then the knowledge itself is the motivator. Whereas if what is happening per chance or in an accidental flow or in a very unconscious way, then you will very frequently feel at loss of energy. You will not know why you should exert yourself at all, and you will require tons of external motivation. If you are somebody who frequently needs to be motivated through an external source, then you should ask yourself, do I really know what I'm doing? I'll come back to the word I used a while back, love. If you're doing something that you know is being done because it deserves to be done, then you will not demand returns from your efforts. That knowledge, that realization that what you are doing is absolutely important makes you choiceless. And then you just do what you have to do without bothering about this or that. Otherwise, your energy levels depend so much on the situations. Just got some positive results, you feel encouraged, energized. Let down by the situations, you feel demotivated, totally sapped of energy. So, maybe every day, 2 times, 3 times, might be a good idea to question yourself. What am I here for? What am I doing? What is this thing really all about? I don't have infinite time. I might be young, but still, all that I have left is, let's say, another 50 years at most, right? And 50 years are nothing. In terms of historical time, 50 years is a blink. Those 50 years will just pass away like a dream. What am I spending my time for? What exactly am I doing this very moment? If you don't ask this question, then that which you are doing has immense power to suck you in and carry you away. This question must be asked, but as we said, it's not comfortable asking this question because most of the times, the moment you ask this question, it will become very difficult to continue doing what you are doing. We like inertia. We do not want to change track, especially if our current track appears to be a safe, secure, and a generally acceptable track. So to remain on that track, it becomes imperative to not to ask these bothersome questions. So we don't ask those questions. But don't ask those questions. In the short term, you will feel okay. Beyond the short term, one does not feel okay. In fact, one turns miserable.
From the host of things that we, like he rightly pointed out, MBA, of the journey of these 2 years, you are thrown hundreds of things at, and even beyond after this, it's going to be you struggling and trying to find out what is it that you have to do, even when you're working. So how do you know?
You can at least know what is it that is not worth doing. Yeah? Start from there. Reduce your choices. You see, there is a virtual pleasure in having lots of choices. The fearful child within us feels happy and secure. Oh, I have so many things to pick from. When you narrow down your choices, then you have to really be an adult. Fine, I have only these 2 things available to me, and even out of these 2 things, one is going to be struck off. Right? And then there are only 2 places to look at. There is the world you look at. What's there in the world that's worth doing? What's there that really demands the involvement of a person like me? And then there is an internal world. What is it in my internal world that demands to be addressed? Look at these 2 worlds and you will come to know what is worth doing. Right? We are all pretty sound on intellect here. I'm so sure that if we just exercise this same intellect in the inward direction, this question of what to do in life and how to make career choices will be answered quite soundly. It is not such a difficult question to answer. But for this question to receive a genuine answer, you will need to be with yourself. You will need to shut out the external voices for a while.
And what is that while?
How long is that while? How long is that while? It's not very long. I mean, your duration in the campus is sufficient. You are first year, right? Are you? You will get ample time in the second year. Even 1 trimester is enough to answer that question. And we are living in the information age, right? Information about the world is always at hand. The other information that you need is news about your internal dimension. That may take a while, but if you are someone who is honest with himself, even that will emerge pretty quickly. It takes not more than a few months. Combine these two things, and you see, that's the most important decision that you make in your life, right? If life is time, then the question of career is the question of what you are putting your time to. Don't make that decision casually. Don't leave it to situations. If you're not investing yourself in the right kind of work, in the right persuasion, then life can be pretty heavy to carry, very heavy. On the other hand, if you are spending 8 hours, 10 hours of your day at the right place, doing the right stuff, then it is your work that keeps you energized, young, moving, alive. Brands, vibes, day 0, day -1, all this you will forget very soon. These are things that matter so much on the campus. The day you move out of these 4 walls, you realize you have a life to live. You have to get up from your place, from your room. You have to report to a particular office. And then it might be a day 0 company. If you cannot spend your day properly there, what?
That I've always found the profession of an Acharya or a wisdom teacher to be quite amusing. Because even Shakespeare himself said that a fool does think himself to be wise, but a wise does think himself to be a fool. And being an Acharya or a wisdom teacher requires you to be the smartest person in the room, or else the people who come to listen to you or follow your advice would not actually appreciate that. But if you are wise enough, you would appreciate that you might not be the smartest person in the room, or you might not have answers to all the questions that may be posed at you. So how do you sort of look at this profession in that manner, if considering that you're a wisdom teacher?
You answer to the best of your capacity. It's not about proving to the other that you are the smartest person in the room. This language itself is quite juvenile. Spirituality is for adults. Who is smart, who is not smart, who is carrying away all the girls, who gets all the attention, all that is for adolescents. So such language does not apply to the spiritual domain. Someone comes to you, someone wants to invest his time with you, that's a responsibility upon you. How do you respond? You respond to the best of your ability. And obviously you never say or claim, if you have any sincerity at all, that your answer is an absolute. And even if you do claim, as some people do, that their answers are God-sent or absolutes, the person in the audience too has his own intellect. He too knows a few things, right? He will assess, he will know. Ultimately, the tire has to meet the road. It's easy to sit on a high chair, it's easy to be placed on a podium and say all the great things. But to be of genuine use to somebody, what you are saying must pass the test of life, right? And that's the right thing. Figure out whether your advice is really useful to someone or not. and never attach any absoluteness to it.
Also, just wanted to know that what is the importance of experience in becoming, say, a wisdom teacher? For example, if a person has not had much experience in his life, and we see that people nowadays are moving into this profession quite early on. So, do you think that experience has a major factor to play as to you can move into such a profession only after you've had certain amount of experience, or you can go on early?
Obviously, experience helps. Obviously, reading helps, knowledge helps. All these things help. But unlike in other walks of human life, here you cannot have very, very certain determinants. You cannot say that someone who has 20 years of experience will surely deliver the goods, or that someone who is only 22 will not realize what he is saying. Some of the greatest proponents of Vedanta, for example, Ashtavakra, Acharya Shankar, they are all quite young people, right? The famous debate that Ashtavakra had with King Janak was when Ashtavakra was just 14 years of age. Acharya Shankar died when he was hardly 30. And before he died, he had composed literature that is considered the gold standard even today. So while obviously experience does matter, but we cannot be too insistent on imposing that constraint. It will become too tight a constraint, right? Ultimately, the only determinant is, does the advice make sense? Is the realization really adding value to the lives of others? We say the truth is that which is useful. Ultimately, it has to perform. Otherwise, it's all just verbiage and sophistry.
One last question from my side, like just one thing, all these things which you are saying that like reading helped you, or people in this room are high on intellect and they have this mental bandwidth to figure it out that what they need, and also it's just because most of these people are very well resourced, they are resourceful. Like if you look, like if in the case of my parents who have been struggling throughout their life, so during their time in that career, or be it a normal person who is thriving to just survive in this world, so do you think all this matters? Like how will he, like I don't think all these things which you are saying and do mean a real sense to him, because at the end he's not that much resourceful that he can divert from his normal path of survival. So like, do you think this is the teachings you give works for all, or is just that those who have resources or those who are having mental bandwidth can do it?
See, 2 or 3 things you have to understand. Even if you are leading your so-called normal daily life in the usual middle class way, still you have to make daily decisions, right? Still every little thing calls for consideration, calls for setting of criteria, and ultimately calls for a decision to be taken. Spirituality or the field of wisdom is about making those daily decisions in the best way possible. It is not something separated from life. And each of one is alive, so we all do have a life. Therefore, we all need spirituality, right? It's like this. We all are walking. Consider life a journey. We all are walking. Spirituality is not about changing the path that you are walking. It is about throwing some light on the same path that you are walking. Are you getting it? Spirituality is not another path. You don't have to quit your daily life. You don't have to change tracks. But won't you want to move on an illuminated track? Right? So spirituality is illumination. It is light. You are living. Why not make your decisions in an illuminated way? Otherwise, there would be obstacles and one would be stumbling at every point as the normal man does. Right? So, and when I said that most of us here are quite well placed to inquire about the world and to go into inner inquiry, I said that not so much on the basis of our resourcefulness, but on the basis of our logical acumen. Going beyond reason, first of all, requires you to have the capacity to exercise reason soundly. That is one thing that you people are quite good at. Exercising logic. And if you can exercise that well, then you will find it relatively easier to come to the boundary of logic.
Acharya ji, namaste. I have 3 questions. I think, according to me, all 3 are correlated with each other. Acharya ji, I want to know how to make best use of resources, then how to manage oneself, and how to make a very better on decision making. Because on recent day, I found that I'm not good enough with my resources like time, money. Then my elder brother pointed, like he said me that I'm not good enough with my decision making, good enough with my decision making, and I also admitted that. So Acharya ji, I want to know how to.
When you say how should you use your resources, you must first of all know what do you want to use your resources for. All your resources are for your sake. Why do you require those resources at all? Who am I to make use of those resources? You cannot just arbitrarily put some resource to some use. Correct? If I need something to use as bandage on this arm, then that's the use I'll put my resources to. If I need something to carry me from this place to that place, then that's the use I'll put my resources to. Resources come later. The user of the resources comes first. So I'm asking, to whom are those resources? If you say, here I am, tell me how to use my resources in the most optimal way, then there can be no answer. The answer has to start with you. What's your life like? What's your inner world like? What is it that keeps you awake and afraid? Once you know what you are fearful of, you immediately know what you should use your money for. Is that not obvious? But if you don't want to answer the question, what is it that threatens you? What is it that makes you insecure? Then how will you know how to use your money? Every resource has to correspond to an inner need. What is that inner need, first of all? No book, no external person can answer that. Only your honesty can answer that. What is your inner climate like? Are you at peace with yourself? Are you envious? Are you hyper competitive? Right? Are you generally at harmony with the environment around you? What does a certain piece of news do to your mind? Look at these things and you will come to know what you must use your resources for. In fact, that will also tell you how much of your resources are just redundant, not needed. That will also tell you what kind of resources you actually need to gather. Most of us do have a lot of resources. For example, knowledge is a resource. But a lot of that knowledge might actually be redundant. Most of us, being young, do have the resource called time. But if you do not know who you are, obviously you will not know what to use your time for. And then how will time be spent? Time would be spent in a very accidental way. So things happened and my time went there. Then something happened there and my time went into that. Right? Time won't wait for you. The clock is ticking. You must know what your time is for. And to know what your time is for, you have to first be with yourself and honestly ask, what do I do every day? What are my thoughts about? What do I feel attracted to? What is it that I really dread? These are very, very important questions. Unfortunately, our education system is such that the importance of these questions is not drilled deep into us. It is probably assumed that these are such obvious questions that we'll know the answers to them, or that we'll know that they must be asked to ourselves. But we don't do that. You might be 25, even 45 years old don't do that. 65-year-olds don't do that. Start doing that.
What can you tell a student that he should do so that there can be some incremental improvement in her? What can be the practical takeaways from this session?
Just as you keep looking outwards all the time, right? Try making it a practice to have an internal sense also. Do not just leave this field unattended. Right? Anything that bothers you, attend to it. Ask yourself some pointed questions. Anything that you are putting your time into, be clear why that activity merits your time. Very importantly, if you are committing yourself to something or somebody, ask yourself, what is it that the commitment really entails? When you say that you want advice from me as a student, you're a student later, you're a person first. Each of us is a person first, no? And to be a person is to be active within. Even when we are sitting still, apparently, we are active within. You should know the nature of this inner activity. You see, if we are using this camera here and it is recording our bodies, then probably it is recording bodies that are sitting reasonably still. Right? Could that camera record our minds? Then it would have recorded probably utter chaos. A lot of disorder. Or it could also have recorded a total absence. A lot of people might not have appeared in the camera at all because the minds are elsewhere. Right? That's the field that you should not leave unaddressed, I said. Keep seeing what's going on there. It's not unimportant, please. But because we are educated in everything that is external, science deals with objects, humanities deal with societies and systems, then there are languages, then there is management of things, then there is mathematics that deals with numbers, figures here and there, right? These are the things we are taught to deal with. We are not taught to deal with ourselves. Learn to deal with yourself. Not only in moments when you are down or depressed, even more so in moments when you are happy or ecstatic. Ask yourself, what is this happiness about? What's going on? It's a very important question to keep asking yourself, what is going on?
Very much, Acharya, for your valuable time. It was really enlightening listening to your views. And personally, I think my learning is to question ourselves, is to why we are doing what we are doing, what is important to us. And while every day in our college, that is what we do to the case studies, but we need to extend it to our daily life is personally what I'm taking away from this session. And we are really happy to have you with us. Thanks.